Good morning. Happy Friday, everybody. I am so happy to be here. My name is Eva Medilek, and every Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific, unless I'm in the air or traveling or something else is going on, I come to you live in my Facebook group, The Intimacy of Race. Now, I created this group as a safe place for allies of Black lives to be able to learn, to have access to resources to facilitate awareness, growing, and learning so that we can create a more inclusive culture without naming, blaming, shaming, and guilting. And so I want to share with you today a little lesson that I learned. So if you're coming on live or on the replay, just say hi and where you're coming in from. But recently, actually just last night, late last night, I got back from Austin, Texas. I live in California, and I was decorating an Airbnb my husband and I purchased back in, I want to say September, August or September. And, our intention was to create kind of a short term, long term furnished rental for people who are transitioning to Austin, but may have difficulty finding a place to land or rent or even buy, if that's the case. Let me just take a little sip of water here. So we were there buying furniture and all the little things that are needed. And what I noticed is how often, and some of you can relate to this, but how often we referred to the main bedroom as the master suite. And we were really working hard to be conscious of the origin of master suite, of, the master's quarters, and how it dates back to times when there were slaves and there were masters. And it's really, really challenging sometimes when your language is so much a part of your fiber, your being, and it just rolls off the tongue naturally. And so many times we were catching ourselves saying the master suite or the master bedroom or in the master. And, we're intentionally being more conscious of how language and the origin of certain language that has become a part of our vernacular has that negative connotation. So, some of you may or may not be aware of uh, the implications of using the master suite. And there's so many others, I'm going to look that up and share it with you. But, in my training for creating safe, inclusive spaces, a lot of it has to do around our languaging and how we use our language, how we ask questions in a way that creates safe, inclusive spaces for people who may have different cultures and different backgrounds from us. I call it a level of inclusive intelligence, especially around our languaging. So often I hear people appropriating the word tribe for their community, and I believe I have some Native American in me, but I'm not 100% sure. So I'm not going to make that claim without being 100% sure. But I know a lot of people in the Black community, love to claim certain Native American heritage in their bloodline. So I just want to make sure before I make that claim that it is absolutely 100% true, because I have such respect for Native Americans and what they really had to endure when their land was stolen from them. And so, there's a part of me that just actually cringes when I hear especially white and white presenting people talking about their tribes and really appropriating the word tribe, knowing the history of how this land, how our country here in the United States and many other places, especially Canada, was stolen from the indigenous peoples of that land. I was just reading something. I'm going to read this to you. A lot of times I'll share on this date, March 18th, 1831. The Supreme Court rules that the Cherokee Nation is barred from suing to enforce treaties. So we're talking about early 19th century here. The state of Georgia enacted legislation, say that 3 times fast, that nullified Cherokee laws and appropriated Cherokee lands. In response to Georgia's extension of its law over the Cherokee Nation, the Cherokee filed suit in the U.S. Supreme Court challenging the legislation and citing treaties the nation had previously entered into with the U.S. government. The Cherokee argued that those treaties established the Cherokee Nation as a sovereign and independent state. But on March 18th, this date in 1831, the Supreme Court issued an opinion in Cherokee Nation versus Georgia, sidestepping the issue of whether Georgia could extend its law over the Cherokee tribes, and instead ruling that the Cherokee Nation was not a foreign nation. So the Supreme Court had no jurisdiction to hear its claims. There's so many things that happened to the indigenous peoples of many, many lands that was just so wrong on so many levels. And so what I would invite you guys to do, whoever's listening to this, is to really make yourself aware and familiar with a lot of the cultural appropriation, not only with the indigenous peoples, but with, Black and brown folks in general, and really look at what that means to come into someone else's territory, if you will, and steal their culture, throw them off their land or steal them from their land and bring them to your land and then appropriate their traditions and their language. Hey, Linda, nice to see you. Thanks for joining. And so I want to just, invite you to look at some of the languaging that you're using to describe your community. If you describe it as your tribe, and I haven't really had the opportunity as yet to ask Indigenous people or Native Americans how they feel about the appropriation of the word tribe and how it's used in a lot of, especially coaching communities. Let me bring this to my tribe. Let me share this with my tribe. Let me see what my tribe said. Inside of me, something just cringes. Like, do I really have the right to steal that? I love communities. I love, what is another word we could use? If you have other words, just share them in the chat when you watch this later. But really think about, as I started out this live with the word master suite and so many other words that can be offensive unintentionally. Please hear me when I say that. Unintentionally, because I use it a lot, even with, learning people's pronouns and being conscious and mindful and respectful of the pronouns that they choose to use to describe themselves. As a person who, is a little bit of a stickler for grammar, it doesn't roll off my tongue naturally. So I've got to really think and be intentional when I am, talking to people and about people. So anyway, I am going to end it here. Just some food for thought, some things to think about when it comes to, some language that it has woven its way into our culture as acceptable. Think about, is it really? And I also want to give you guys a heads up. I am going to be hosting my own radio show on Voice America's Influencer channel starting in April. I believe it's starting April 19th. And I can't wait to share, the type of guests that I'm going to have on that are going to talk about how they are taking a stand to create more diverse and inclusive communities in their lives and business, as well as other things we can do for our health and fitness, our mental and emotional well being, our physical well being, and the health of our businesses as well as our lives as well. It's called What's Important Now, The Win, How to Make Time for What Matters Most with Eva Medilek. And I can't wait to invite you all to tune into that weekly, Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Pacific. And would love to have any of you who are launching a book or a program or something that you believe will have value to the communities that listen to the show. We would love to have you as a guest. So message me for that. Anyway, thanks a bunch, guys. I will talk to you next. Oh, I don't know if I'll talk to you next Friday. I think I'm going to be in Arizona. But anyway, I will talk to you when I talk to you again. Bye.